a rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. People are getting off work, going to be listening, doing all kinds of different things there. Now I do have something popping here because I want to I'm trying to get the question of the week. I forgot to grab it and bring it out where I could. Just give me just a second here to get this. Oh, all right. That's better. All right, let's go ahead and get some things kicked off here. Tonight, of course, I've got a couple of things going on here. But it was sort of interesting to see and hear of a comment that was made by one of our Supreme Court justices. Now, granted, he is, he's already written a book once before, but he is now reportedly going to co-author a children's book. And it was during the conversation and the promotion of that he made this interesting comment that I want to discuss. But before we get into that, we've got several other things that are going on. There were some interesting revelations about some of the things that are coming out of the Epstein email drops that not everybody is paying attention to because of the fact that, of course, most of it, even though Trump's name is mentioned in them, the vast majority, there's not even a single iota of evidence or reference to anything untoward that Trump did. So again, the leftists seem to think that merely the fact of mentioning Trump's name automatically just becomes a bit of a problem. But there's some other little Easter eggs in there that we're finding out. Plus, I've got an update on the Fani Willis case in Georgia. Yes, that's still moving forward slowly, but it is still moving forward. So I got an update on that. Along with a couple of other things. And then, of course, like I just said, the fascinating question of the week at the end of the program. So stick with me. Stick with me tonight, and we'll have a pretty good show going on here. So the first thing up, of course, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is performed by Definitely Not Karen. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Definitely Not Karen as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and of course I thank Definitely Not Karen for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing, whichever way you want to go, the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email. Send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. Looking for number 21. I've got 20. I need 21. I'd like some more. So if you haven't done one yet, please do so. Also, don't forget, if you do it on your phone, you can hit the share button. And that will do the exact same thing. It'll send it off to me. You can put in my email, fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and get it to me. Become number 21, man. 21's a great number. It's not my favorite numbers because I like things in symmetry. So even numbers are my favorite numbers. But 21 is still pretty cool, especially if you're at the blackjack table. Just hoping that the dealer doesn't come up with a 21. Anyway, all right, folks. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Oh, wait. First, of course, before I do this, definitely not Karen. Just showed up, and then we just heard your pledge there, sir. All right, folks. The first thing, obviously, is our headline sponsor, which is the Institute on the Constitution. Very apropos, considering what we're doing or what we're going to be talking about tonight. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online, or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, all you need to do is go to constitution.americanperspective.online, and just remember that all amendments have a 100-year numerical order guarantee. No, I'm just kidding. They've been around for a lot longer than that, but anyway, it does have sexy rounded corners, according to all of my rumblers. So let's take a look at this wonderful product. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. No cheap glue here, folks. The binding is stitched all the way through the pages and the leather contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if there is a problem with this product, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for your civics badge in scouting, as well as your civics exam. Might even help you get that naturalization test passed. I'm sure it will do that. All you need to do is head off to constitution.americanperspective.online to get yours today. Don't forget, Christmas is coming up in, I don't know, somewhere around 40 days. And you can stick these into those stockings for all of your American friends, whether it's liberals, leftists, or your conservatives. And you'll get the joy of watching the conservatives loving it, the leftists trying to destroy it, and the liberals, well, they might just shrink away, as well, like the Wicked Witch of the West who melted when she touched it, or touched the water. Anyway, go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get yours today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings, that would be fantastic. And check out all of their offerings, and I appreciate them for allowing me to be an affiliate. Apparently, Fat Paws is going to design the Whiskey Warrior library. Well, Fat Paws, you and I are going to have to talk about the types of books that go into the Whiskey Warrior library. And I've got a hint for you. It's going to be a lot of, let's just say American history books. Anyway, enough said on that. All right, let's talk California. Let's start with California. Yeah. Good old Bang Bang Fang Fang himself, or Bang Bang of Fang Fang himself, Eric Swalwell, he's actually thinking about running for governor in California. As if they didn't already have a plethora of complete, utter, stupid people in California who wanted to run for governor after Gavin Newsom has destroyed the state. Hey, shout out really quick to Reese Hollow Bushcraft over on YouTube. What's up? What's up is about what I'm going to tell you. Anyway, hope you're having a good day. All right. So again, getting back to Swalwell, he is mulling a bid for the governor. Now, when he's planning on doing this, I have no idea. But he's looking for it. And, of course, that's probably going to have to be after, or whether or not he's going to be successful in his case of his case of mortgage fraud that's just been brought or referred to the Department of Justice. So, yeah. Anyway. Anyway, a recent survey, according to this article in Punchbowl News, a recent survey said that it was conducted by an outside group that was supporting the congressman, showed that Swalwell is actually in fourth place. He polled better than other candidates who have been in the race already for months. So Republican Steve Hilton took first place with 20%, followed by Katie Porter with 16%, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Blanco with 14%, and Swalwell came in at 11% of the vote. So, yeah, we also have to remember that there's a couple other people in the race, like Xavier Becerra and former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villarosa, or Villaraigosa. Yeah, there we go. I think I got it right. Anyway, they polled at 9% and 5%, respectively. So, yeah. And that survey was of 1,000 likely primary voters, and it was conducted in late October by EMC Research. Yeah. So the poll apparently also asked what voters are looking for in a nominee. Now, this is really interesting. It's a 77% said someone who will stand up to Trump and the Republicans to protect the democratic values. They obviously didn't. They obviously don't know what our American values actually are. 65% said that they wanted a currently elected official. A little over half, 54%, said they wanted a progressive Democrat. See, that's your problem in California, folks. That's your problem in California. You guys all seem to want, well, the vast majority of you want to see a progressive Democrat. And 54% said that they wanted a woman, which that cuts against Swalwell. So, there you go. Anyway. Oh, yes, I am being told by my unofficial producers over on Rumble that I missed the first segment of the hour, which, of course, is on this day in American history. So now that I'm done talking about Swalwell, you know, the bang, bang, fang, fang, we're going to get into our little factoids. So hang on, here we go. On this day in American history. And, of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, which is written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. It is chock full of all kinds of factoids about this wonderful country that we call home. And as you can see with my little marker there, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty because we're closing in on the end of the end of the year. So tonight we're going to talk about Zebulon Pike spots Pike's Peak. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought I could distinguish a mountain to our right, which appeared like a small blue cloud, wrote Lieutenant Zebulon Pike, who on November 15, 1806, was leading an expedition toward the headwaters of the Arkansas River. A look through a spyglass seemed to confirm his conjecture, and as he rode forward, the distant cloud turned into a majestic peak. His men gave 3 cheers when a grand western chain of mountains with snow-covered flanks appeared in full view. They had just become the first U.S. expedition to reach the Rocky Mountains in what is now called Colorado. Lieutenant Pike's journey was part exploration and part spy mission. His orders were to look over the southern portion of the Louisiana Purchase and find out what the Spanish were doing in the Mexican borderlands. His men were poorly trained and equipped, but Pike was determined to push as far as he could. Several days later, he and 3 others set out to ascend the high peak he had spotted. They spent a day climbing rocks, sometimes almost perpendicular, and shivered through a night in a cave. The next morning they climbed higher. Far below, clouds swept across the prairie like the ocean in a storm, wave piled on wave. They hiked through waist-high snow to a summit, where Pike realized that the massive peak he had seen still lay 15 miles away. Convinced that no human being could have ascended to its pinnacle, the freezing men returned to their camp and then continued their journey west. In 1820, botanist Edwin James became the first man to conquer Pikes Peak. Today, you can reach the top by highway, cog railway, or the old-fashioned way, climbing. Both authors have hiked to the summit for one of the most glorious views in America. And that is today's On This Day in American History. You know, this country has been filled, and I believe still is filled, with entrepreneurs and frontiers people who are willing to risk it all for the glory and the prize awaiting them to make this country the greatest it can be. So, anyway. All right. Let's see here. Oh, yes. Just to confirm what everybody has already been talking about over the last couple of days, if you are aware of it, the DOJ has joined the suit to block Newsom's racially gerrymandered map. So, again, this is continuing that whole back and forth about the gerrymandering, which, just to be 100% clear, folks, gerrymandering in and of itself is not illegal. Okay? It is not illegal. However, it sure seems a little unethical that you'd be using things like, how somebody voted, or the color of their skin, which is already in the Supreme Court right now, and could potentially affect our 2026 midterm elections, by the way, should the Supreme Court decide to strike that down. But all of that is basically showing that, again, gerrymandering by itself, just like, by the way, this alternate slate of electors things that everybody seems to think that just because Trump had an alternate slate of electors in 2020, that was like something illegal. It's not illegal to have them. It really isn't. It's not illegal for them to be there. It's not illegal. It has been a common practice since back in JFK days, when JFK and Nixon had, I think it was JFK that had the alternate slate of electors from Hawaii in terms of getting, or maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was RFK, not JFK. But anyway, the point being is that one of those two had alternate slates of electors that came from Hawaii because Hawaii was the last one to sort of in the toss-up in that particular close race. So anyway, there you go. Now, that being said, okay, in this particular case, gerrymandering and choosing to do this gerrymandering and how they chose to do this gerrymandering is actually legally questionable. And the reason being is because of the fact that the California Constitution specifically states that you cannot have gerrymandering or what is better known as redistricting happen in between censuses. And so even though the California voters approved Proposition 50 to suspend the state's independent redistricting commission and enact a partisan map backed by it, I don't think that it's going to work out completely because of the fact, too, that the DOJ filed this lawsuit or joined the lawsuit filed by the California Republican Party and alleges that the Democrat-backed plan mandates racially gerrymandered congressional districts in violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Equal Protections Clause are in Amendment 14, or I should say the 14th Amendment. And the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, said in a statement, quote, California's redistricting scheme is a brazen power grab that tramples on civil rights and mocks the democratic process. Governor Newsom's attempt to entrench one-party rule and silence millions of Californians will not stand. So, keep in mind, all of this is based off of the fact that Democrats have been gerrymandering all kinds of states, in particular their home states of Illinois, California, and New York, in such ways as to have a district that, for an example, in Illinois, goes and meanders almost all the way across the state, like a snake or following a river bed kind of scenario. And they do this because they believe that if you are a person of color, that you are 99.9% is going to basically vote Democrat. And that's what they're looking to do, is they're looking to entrench themselves, and the Democrat Party in particular, in power in a lot of these places. And so they're utilizing things such as race to make determinations on the district, the redistricting. Now, in all of this case, you need to understand that the case before the Supreme Court right now could upend everything come spring, because they heard oral arguments with regards to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which essentially was put in place in order to allow for, or to, I should say, tip the scales, balance the scales back to what was considered back when it was passed, balance the scales back to a point where race was being considered because of the fact that you wanted to make sure that there was a proper representation of voters in a district. Now, all of that is over and done with, though. We don't need to do that. Regardless of what the leftists think, the amount of racism in America is very minor. I'm not going to say that it doesn't exist, because there are pockets, I'm sure, there are places, there are people who still believe in racism, but the vast majority is no longer required. Same thing with things like affirmative action, which SCOTUS flipped on universities just recently. And during the questioning of the redistricting in terms of whether or not they were going to take out parts of and consider parts of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act as being unconstitutional. The questions that came out from some of the justices seem to indicate that the justices are willing to essentially say, look, the federal government put their finger on the scale when it was needed. And now it's no longer needed. There should be a time limit on when the or how legislation is actually made to be pressed onto the scale in order to balance it, supposedly. And as of right now, things like affirmative action and this Voting Rights Act and so on and so forth is actually tipping the scale in the opposite direction. Because many of these Democrat, and again, keep in mind, many of these Democrat states, they have, like, when you look at the voting records of these states, they'll have something like a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split, or maybe even closer to like a 45-55 split. And what ends up happening is they gerrymander districts in such a way that there is not a single Republican in some of these gerrymandered states. And so the whole concept of equal representation is thrown out the window at that point, because you have states that are, you know, a portion of them, a significant, we'll call it a significant portion. I mean, at least like, you know, a quarter to a third of the state is actually voting Republican, yet they literally have zero representation in either Congress or potentially their state legislature, or both. And coming from a state, Washington, where this is a relative reality for us here, not that our state necessarily does a bunch of gerrymandering, but just the plain and simple fact that many of our representatives are more often Democrats than they are Republicans, especially in the areas that I live in, like Western Washington. And it becomes a bit of a irritation, let's just say, for that particular scenario. So I am fully looking forward to that case being taken care of in terms of this gerrymandering. I am really looking forward and hoping that SCOTUS will actually get rid of that, which will cause all kinds of problems. But hey, you know what? It needs to be done. So anyway. Okay, so all of that. The DOJ alleged that there is substantial evidence that suggests that the state legislature created a new map in which Latino demographics and racial considerations predominated in violation of the Equal Protection Clause. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, Jesus Ossetti, who is a principal deputy assistant attorney general for civil rights, said, quote, race cannot be used as a proxy to advance political interests, but that is precisely what the what the California General Assembly did with Prop 50. Californians were sold an illegal, racially gerrymandered map, but the U.S. Constitution prohibits its use in 2026 and beyond. So just to give you an idea, Republicans currently hold only 9 out of California's 52 House seats. Under Proposition 50, that number could fall to just 4 seats, or just 8% of the state's delegation. And again, that's a very large difference as opposed to the way that the state actually votes, which is, again, pretty close to like a 65-35 split. So equal representation definitely is coming into play for all of these gerrymandered things. And just to clear the record again, this all got kicked off by Texas doing its map, but Texas was doing its map and redid its map under court order. It was ordered by the court to redistrict because the districts weren't, according to that court, they weren't done correctly. So, there you go. Anyway, we'll see where that goes. All right. Let's step back into the time machine here, but before I do that, let me talk to you about this wonderful elixir that I drink every single morning. You could drink it too. You could drink it too. It's called coffee. And for those of you that may not drink coffee, not suggesting that you go ahead and do it, but it may not be a bad idea to give it a try. I mean, you might find that you like it. Or you end up hooked on it like myself, where I can't go a day without it. Anyway, if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, and there's a small number of units available. Within each unit, you're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast coffee, as well as their Vitality Mushroom coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also going to be getting my personal favorite, the Gold Spoon Clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough to stir up not only your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. Well, let's face it, it isn't really all that hard to stir up your mother-in-law's opinions. Just saying. Also, you'll be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. That is a low, low price, folks. $99 for that $170 worth of coffee and gear. This is for the ones that have been watching 1775 coffee blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to the numbers 1775, the word coffee, all of that is all one word. So that's 1775coffee.com/studio. And that / is your question mark key on your keyboard, by the way. 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they are gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit today. All right. So stepping back into the Wayback Machine, do you remember that Fannie Willis election case where Fannie Willis got, I don't know, can't remember the guy's name other than Wade, but I think his last name was Wade. But anyway, the two were lovers, and Wade was being paid an exorbitant amount of money in comparison to his experience. You remember that? Yeah, and you remember how it was questioned under the Georgia law whether or not Fannie Willis had a conflict of interest with regards to this particular case? Yeah, because of that interaction. Well, Fannie Willis got kicked off as well as Wade. They both got kicked off the case. And for the last, well, I don't know, several months, they have been attempting to find another lawyer who was willing to actually pick up the case. Now, keep in mind that if they had not found a lawyer, which, by the way, Judge McAfee went ahead and said, hey, you have until November 14th to find a lawyer, or otherwise I will dismiss this case. And it turns out that they could not find a single attorney that was willing to take up the case. So the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia and the executive director basically said, hey, several prosecutors were contacted, and while all were respectful and professional, each declined the appointment Out of respect for their privacy and professional discretion, I will not identify those prosecutors or disclose their reasons for declining. Now, all of that being said, the person who was essentially creating or performing the search finally said, okay, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and appoint myself to the case. So the person that was, basically looking for it, and that was Scandalicus. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to bother trying to spell it. But anyway, he wrote in his appointment, he basically said that the public has a legitimate interest in the outcome of this case. He indicated that he would complete a comprehensive review and make an informed decision regarding how best to proceed. So he has decided to take on the case. He did say that while it would have been simple to just allow Judge McAfee's deadline to lapse or to inform the court that no conflict prosecutor could be secured, thereby allowing the case to be dismissed for want of prosecution, he did say, I did not believe that to be the correct course of action. So there now is a prosecutor on this case. However, shortly after appointing himself, Fulton County Superior Court Judge McAfee said last evening that he was dropping three more of the more than 30 charges in this supposed RICO case. So, yeah, you remember back in March of 2024 that Judge McAfee quashed 6 counts, including 3 counts against President Trump. So he quashed 6 counts against the group, and now he quashed an additional 3. Trump was charged with 2 out of the 3 counts that were dropped on Friday. There are still 32 charges that remain as this new prosecutor has taken over the case. So it's going to be interesting to see where this thing moves forward. But apparently on Friday, McAfee ordered that counts 14, 15, and 27, which were conspiracy and criminal attempt to file false documents as well as filing false documents, should be dismissed. Now, Trump had been charged with 2 of the counts, 15 and 27. So even with all of these counts removed, 32 of them still remain, including an overarching racketeering charge brought against the remaining 15 defendants. So, yeah. Anyway, we're just gonna have to kind of see what the heck happens here. So we'll just have to see what happens here. But unfortunately, this thing is not going to be dying anytime soon. As much as we would love it to, it's not going to. All right. Now, I've already talked to you guys a little bit about the, and I'm sorry, I'm not drinking alcohol tonight. That's why I didn't show you. I took some medicine early today that I don't, as all of you may know, and this is a bit of a PSA here, but never, ever mix medicine and alcohol together. Okay, just don't do it. Just don't do it. So that's why I'm not drinking alcohol tonight. All right. So we have been finding, because of the Epstein email drop. Now, keep in mind, the Democrats only wanted to release 3 of the more than 20,000 emails that the Republicans of the Oversight Committee went ahead and just went, okay, we're just going to dump everything. And when they did that, they released a bunch of nuggets in here. One of them mainly being that there was a Democrat who was a Democrat representative from the Virgin Islands. Her name is Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, was actually exchanging text messages during the 2019 congressional hearing when former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen was being deposed or being questioned. Yeah. So, if you recall, Michael Cohen was previously sentenced to 36 months in prison for lying to Congress, campaign finance violations, and tax evasion charges related to his taxi medallion business. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein was actually monitoring the Michael Cohen proceedings and was coaching Plaskett via text. Yeah. Epstein is reported to have sent Plaskett a text saying Cohen brought up Rona, the keeper of secrets, referring to former Trump aide Rona Graff, according to the Washington Post. He apparently also texted with her, and by the way, the Plaskett responded back and was like, Rona, because it was capital R-O-N-A, not R-H-O-N-A, which is Rona's actual name, how it's spelled, properly spelled. But Plaskett responded, Rona? And then, quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? She added, suggesting that she would be questioning Cohen really soon. Well, and Epstein replied back, that's his assistant. Now, there's a video. Let's go ahead and play it. Oop. I'm going to bring up the proper... Here we go. So here's a video of it. And I'm going to go along. There's going to be some volume, some sound here in just a minute. But the Post reviewed, apparently, the Washington Post viewed many texts and reviewed videos and were able to, tie these together. So here, let me see if I can make this a bit larger. So here she is, and I'm going to back this up. Let me back this up. So here she is. And you'll see that she's sitting there. I paused the video, but you'll see that she's sitting there. And apparently there was a text from Jeffrey Epstein that basically said, hey, are you chewing? Because it looked like she was chewing something. And she responds back to that and says, yeah, it's a habit. She goes, not anymore. It's a habit of what I do when I'm nervous or excited or whatever. So then a little bit later, they have this video and they show her, she's looking down on her phone. She's looking down on her phone and the message comes in at the time. Now they timestamp these. And the text from Jeffrey Epstein shows up on the phone where it was Cohen brought up Rona, the keeper of secrets, the one that I just read to you. And here she is looking down at her phone, and she apparently responded back, and she goes, Rona? Capital R-O-N-A, question mark. So, yeah. And she's sitting here conversing, and she says, quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? And you can see her looking down at her phone. The message back from Epstein says that's his assistant.
Yes.
Then a little bit later, she's questioning Cohen.
Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They
and
are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So, Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
This is Michael Cohen
Give us
responding.
as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Miss Rona, what is Miss Rona's position?
Rona Graff is the Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his. And
Okay, I paused it here because you got to look at the text. The text goes, "Good work from Jeffrey Epstein." So, folks, look, if you actually think that Jeffrey Epstein was a friend of Donald Trump at this point, and keep in mind, this is 2019. This is after Trump was elected. But she's sitting here and, I mean, she's interacting with Epstein, wherever Epstein was, she's interacting with him. He is feeding her information. She didn't even know who the hell Rona Graff was. Rona Graff. She didn't know who Rona Graff was. I'm sorry, I'm saying that because my closed captioning was trying to like tie it together into one word. And she's getting texts from Epstein.
she's involved in a lot that went on.
This is Michael Cohen again. Oh, so here you can see where Plaskett and her staff declined to answer questions about the text messages. After the story was published in the Washington Post Friday evening, Plaskett's office issued this statement. During the hearing, Congresswoman Plaskett received texts from staff, constituents, and the public at large offering advice, support, and in some cases, partisan vitriol, including from Epstein. So, yeah, they have admitted the fact that, yes, she was interacting with Epstein. The statement continues on and says, as a former prosecutor, she welcomes information that helps her get at the truth and took on the GOP that was trying to bury the truth, which is false. They weren't trying to cover it. But anyway, the Congresswoman has previously made clear her long record combating sexual assault and human trafficking, her disgust over Epstein's deviant behavior, and her support for his victims. Really? Yet here she is talking with Epstein directly about this. Yeah. Let's see what else her statement says here. Keep in mind, this is all part of the Washington Post video about it. And I think that's it. I think that's the last of the statement. Oh.
Hello, good evening.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Anyway. So, yeah. The copies of the text messages were included in a trove of thousands of pages of documents containing Epstein's emails and other communications that were released Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee. The messages show that Epstein was invested in what Cohen was sharing about Trump and during his testimony. So, yeah, I don't seem to think, I mean, again, this leans towards support of Trump's basically comments where he's saying that, you know what, I just, yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm not with him anymore. I'm not around him anymore. I kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He hated me, which this goes along with another email message, and so on and so forth. So now keep in mind that the name of the texting partner was redacted in the documents. However, like I said, they lined up the timestamps and took a close look at who was responding to those timestamps at the time in order to figure out who this person was. So, yeah. So anyway, Epstein. Yeah. So the Epstein thing, it looks like it's a little bit more toward the Democrats than Donald Trump in terms of all of this. All right. So really quickly, you remember that Congresswoman, the Democrat, LaMonica McIver, where she was arrested for obstruction at the ICE facility in New Jersey? Well, apparently she claimed she claimed that she could not be arrested or whatever. And, the federal judge actually said, you know what? Yeah, you're going to stand trial for assaulting a federal law enforcement officer. So U.S. District Judge Jamel Semper denied McIver's demand to drop 2 of the 3 charges that were leveled against her. The judge rejected the Democrats' claims that the charges were excessive due to political motivation, or motive of political retribution is the technical term, I guess. But anyway, and that because she was an elected official, she was immune from prosecution. Oh, hey. I seem to recall, by the way, and as you'll notice, the teacher classes are going on, or what are affectionately known as the teacher classes are going on. I seem to recall that I said something about this, that, here it is. Wow, it's amazing. I actually even opened it to the right page. Article 1, Section 6. See, this is what these idiots don't seem to understand, is that you can just pick up the Constitution of the United States, a copy. It doesn't matter what copy it is, but you can just grab it. And you can read for yourself these kinds of things. Now, she says that she's an elected official. She's immune from prosecution. This judge ruled appropriately, because here it is right here under Article 1. Section 6. Now remember, Article 1 covers Congress, covers the legislative branch, which she is a member of. Article 1, Section 6. They shall, meaning the representatives, they shall in all cases except treason, felony, and, oh my gosh, breach of the peace. Wow. What is that? What is breach of peace? Breach of the peace? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with, standing up in front of a ICE officer, attempting to, and assaulting that ICE officer. But it goes even further than that. It says that they shall be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses and in going to and returning from the same, and for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. Let me break that down for you, folks. The only place that these Congress people have actual immunity is when they are A, doing their job during the attendance of the session of Congress. And they are privileged from arrest in going to and returning from those sessions. It has nothing to do with when they show up at an ICE facility. Yeah, their privilege from arrest does not include when they go running off somewhere outside of their session of Congress. Yeah, it doesn't cover that. Sorry, little Miss McIver, okay? But you're not immune from arrest. This federal judge got it right. This federal judge got it right. And it's amazing to me how many people are like, well, wait a minute, they're privileged from arrest. No, you are not privileged from arrest. Not only did she violate Title 18, United States Code, Section 111, but she also violated the breach of peace clause, which she is not immune from arrest from. So there you go. There you go. I don't know where these people seem to think all of this is, yeah. I honestly, I don't understand realistically where these people come from, where they think that these people have just like blanket immunity. They don't. The president himself doesn't have blanket immunity. The Supreme Court, which, by the way, didn't even have to bother to like offer all of that up because, let's be honest, anybody with half a brain already knew that the president had immunity when he's doing official acts, which is simply what the Supreme Court basically affirmed in the Trump immunity case. We already knew this. Anybody with half of a brain already understood this. That's why Obama didn't get in trouble for droning a U.S. citizen back when he was in office, or any of the other things that he did back when he was in office. I mean, you can go throughout history and see where the president doing official duties was given an exemption from being prosecuted. I mean, it didn't take a genius to figure that out. It really doesn't take a genius to read the Constitution and figure out what it says. And in the words of the great Antonin Scalia, the Constitution says what it says and doesn't say what it doesn't say. It's a document. I mean, it's just there. You go. It's a document. You read it. You understand it. And by the way, if you want to understand the Constitution, you might as well, rather than, traveling back in time and possibly talking to the people who wrote it, or the main author of the Constitution, being James Madison, maybe, just maybe, I think there's some supporting documents that you could possibly pick the brain of and understand. Oh, what's that wonderful thing known as the Federalist Papers? Yeah. You can actually read the Federalist Papers. And if you really wanted to scoot a little bit farther than just the Federalist Papers, you want to read at the people who objected to it, oh, you could read the Anti-Federalist Papers too. If you do one or both, you gain a clear understanding of what is going on with our government. And you'll also gain a clear understanding as to how far outside of our federal government's constitutional boundaries they actually are. And if you go and take a look at history, and you go and take a look at who was in Congress, or who was the president, or who was both at the time that these usurpations of the boundaries of the Constitution of the United States occurred, when they occurred, you'll find the vast majority of them were done by Democrats. The same party that is looking to be destroyed. Looking to destroy, I should say. Looking to destroy the American system of government. That same party that is sitting there and picking constantly at our constitutional freedoms and protections. We need to stand against it. Unfortunately, and I agree with Justice Gorsuch on this, unfortunately, people don't know our civil government, our civil protections. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about this wonderful partnership between... Oh, hang on. Gotta start this again here. Stop. Sometimes this really gets frustrating when I try to bring up an ad read. Anyway, so let me tell you about this wonderful partnership that's going on right now. If you're looking for smarter ways to browse and enjoy your favorite content without ads, go ahead and pick up the Perplexity Pro bundle that has Rumble Premium partnered with it for just $19.99 a month when you sign up before December 31st. It's normally a $29.99 value. You're getting it for $19.99. With Rumble Premium, you'll get an ad-free viewing experience across all of your devices and access to exclusive premium content. No interruptions, just the video and streams that you love, like this show, anywhere, anytime. Plus, you'll also get Perplexity Pro, which boosts your productivity with unlimited research, unlimited uploads, exclusive member perks, and access to the latest and most advanced AI models for faster, smarter answers every single day. Save over 30% on this powerful bundle. And in order to do that, you got to head to rumble.com/premium before December 31st, sorry, before the end of the year. Go to rumble.com/premium before the end of the year to get this 30% off this powerful bundle, both Perplexity Pro and Rumble Premium, for just $19.99 a month when you sign up. Save 30% on this powerful bundle, rumble.com Premium and Perplexity Pro, all for just $19.99 a month when you sign up before December 31st by going to rumble.com/premium. That's rumble.com/premium to sign up and unlock your premium experience. All right. So Justice Gorsuch, he announced on Thursday that he's going to co-author a children's book next year focused exclusively on the Declaration of Independence. Now, Gorsuch did author a book last year that targeted the idea of burdensome government regulations. Okay? This new book is going to be titled The Heroes of 1776, The Story of the Declaration of Independence. Now, this book is set to publish in May. And Gorsuch indicated that this release is timed to correspond with the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence signing. Now, keep in mind, that's where we get our whole 250-year anniversary. This is the 2026 will be the 250th year of our independence from England, our declaration of such. And Gorsuch told Fox News in an interview on Thursday that over the next year, we'll celebrate a lot of dates and events with fireworks, and I wanted to share with children some stories about courage and sacrifice of the heroes behind 1776 who gave us our Constitution and our liberties. Now, keep in mind, this book, okay, this book is going to talk about the 56 men, or I'm hoping, it's going to talk about the 56 men that wagered their fortunes, their families, and their lives for the principles and values that created and made this country the great powerhouse, the greatest country that has graced this planet ever in the world, and set us up as America to be one of the few places of freedom that is left on this planet. Now, the thing about it is that Gorsuch was in a discussion regarding this book. And during this interview, in this video, let's just say he expressed a fear that he was talking about. He expressed a fear or a position as to why our country is in the situation that it's in. So let's head on over there and listen to Gorsuch in terms of what he thinks a major problem is for this country.
It seems like a lot of my generation and the younger generation, those stories just aren't taught in schools. Do you think that has hurt us as a society, that we eliminated those stories out of the history books?
Okay, before I get to Gorsuch's answer, I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. This interviewer First of all, let me just point out for those of you on the audio portion of the program, this gentleman is black. And he is pointing out that our education for people, and he looks to be probably in his, I'm going to say late 20s, early 30s. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I'm guessing. And he's basically calling out a gap in the educational system of America today that I have maintained here on this program. And that's one of the reasons why I partner with the Institute on the Constitution, is to help bring that grassroots education back into this country. But he points out a specific area of education that is lacking in today's realm and world of basic primary education. Now let's take a listen to how Justice Gorsuch of the Supreme Court of the United States answers that question.
You know, this is one thing my colleagues and I really agree on, is the importance of bringing civic education to our children. Over half of Americans can't pass the citizenship exam we expect people who come to this country to pass. Most Americans cannot name the 3 branches of government. And if you ask me what the greatest danger America faces today, it's itself. And we have to learn how to talk to one another. We need to know our shared history. And I think if we do that, we'll come to realize that all the things that separate us pale in comparison to the things that unite us, those 3 great ideas in the Declaration. And so, yeah, I wanted to be part of America's celebration and bringing us together again.
So
there it is. Justice Gorsuch hit the nail on the head. And I even take it even farther on this program, because there are several things that I have talked about on this program that point out clearly a lacking in the reality, the realism. This is part of the reason why I have taken it upon myself to ensure that this program, this is why I pull out things like the Constitution. This is why I pull out books like the Federalist Papers. This is why I am pointing out to all of you who are out in my audience, these are the truths of our government. These are the truths of our founding. Things, for an example, like the fact that America is and has been founded upon Judeo-Christian principles and values, that religion played an integral part of creating not only this country, but creating the founding documents, whether it was the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And that people need to understand that there is a generational gap. Like this gentleman pointed out, there is a generational gap in the understanding of our government and how it operates. That there is a generational gap to fully understand. See, so many people seem to think that the president has more power than the president really should have. That there are so many people who believe that the federal government on its own, and this is perpetuated by the propagandist outlets and the leftist regimes that are trying to make it to where you turn our federal government into the nanny state, which is a socialist style of government, that you're sitting there and you're thinking that things like healthcare, Social Security, welfare, all of these wonderful social programs, and by wonderful, I'm putting them in quotes and trying to discuss them a little bit facetiously, let's say. All these wonderful social programs that the federal government funds, whether it's money flowing off to foreign entities, whether it's money flowing off to support programs that are designed to, influence operations across the globe. Folks, none of that is a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. And I know I've said it on this program a lot, and I'm going to keep hammering it because this is the truth. If you want to know what our federal government is allowed to do, and I do tell you, allowed to do, not that they can just willy-nilly come up with whatever law that they decide to, not that they can just willy-nilly decide where the money that is collected via taxes goes to. No. See, that's a misnomer. That is a pure misunderstanding. And I'm sorry, but ignorance is not an excuse in this case. That is a complete misunderstanding of the way our government works. Our government has enumerated specific tasks that it is supposed to do. They are outlined in Article 1, Section 8. There is nothing else you need to read. If you want to specifically know what our government is supposed to be spending money and making laws on, those 18 very specific enumerated items are it. That's it. There is none of this additional stuff that they keep talking about doing. And what Gorsuch is talking about, which, by the way, he's talking about this in terms of, in particular, as a general rule of thumb, but he also brings this up as a part of his other book that he wrote about, that he talked about. In particular, he told in this other book that he wrote that is out, that is out now, he told the story of a commercial fisherman in Florida who was threatened with a 20-year prison sentence for tossing undersized grouper overboard, case that was decided by the Supreme Court in 2015, where he also wrote about Marty Hani, or Han, I don't know how it's pronounced, who was a Missouri magician who became a cause célèbre for anti-regulation advocates a decade ago when the U.S. Department of Agriculture required him to draft an emergency disaster plan for his rabbit Casey that he pulled out of a hat at shows. Folks, our government has increasingly extended beyond its constitutional boundaries. And they keep growing more and more. And I attribute a large portion of this to the lack of education of the general public in terms of understanding not only our government's processes and how things are supposed to run, but also the limits that are supposed to be on our federal government, which are all contained within the Constitution. It's a 15-minute read, people. This document in this book here, a lot of people are like, well, I can't read the Constitution because it's written in cursive. Well, guess what? This book is written in regular type. You get yourself the Constitution of the United States from this program. Everything, for the most part, is written in regular type, except for the word amendment or the word article or whatever. And I guarantee you, you hang out and watch this program when it is pertinent to whatever is happening, I will bring you the truth, the reality of what is happening in this country. So, yeah. Justice Gorsuch is right. He is absolutely correct that the lack of basic civics knowledge is a major threat to this country. How are you going to know if your rights have been violated if you don't even know what those rights are? How are you going to understand as a voting citizen when a lawmaker steps outside of their constitutional boundaries? How are you going to understand that the president doesn't have the ability to just drop executive orders and they become law? Which a lot of people seem to think, even President Trump seems to think that that is something that can be done. How are you going to know that if you don't understand our government? How are you going to know that if you don't understand our founding documents, if you don't understand your basic freedoms? How are you going to know that healthcare is not even a responsibility of the federal government? That anything the federal government is supposed to be doing is predominantly from the border outwards and not the border inwards? That the states are the ones that actually have the power. No, we have decided as a society, because we have gotten away from, and this I blame the Democrats in particular for, because they've taken over our educational system, which is part of, by the way, the Department of Education doesn't even exist in the Constitution. That's not even supposed to be a federal government responsibility yet again. There is so much that our federal government is doing right now that it never should have done. And even to sit and understand the first 10 amendments, which is our Bill of Rights, to be able to understand the idea that was put together and put forth by that Bill of Rights, which a lot of people seem to believe that the Declaration of Independence, that the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights were all kind of done at about the same time, which is completely wrong. You need to understand our U.S. history. You need to understand all of this. And I'm just saying, this is part of the problem. This is the biggest part of the problem. And everybody needs to learn this as much as they can. Follow this show, follow this channel on all of my outlets, or one of my outlets, doesn't really matter, and I guarantee you I will bring you the truth about all of this. Okay. So, in our final moments here, before I get going too far, I want to give a couple of other articles here. First of all, Toyota has decided and is launching production at a massive North Carolina battery plant, and has confirmed that Toyota is going to have additional investments in the United States of America. Toyota has launched production at its new $13.9 billion battery manufacturing plant in North Carolina, while pledging an additional $10 billion investment in its U.S. operations over the next 5 years. The plant and Toyota's additional investments will support its popular hybrid vehicle business. Now, I personally can tell you that I think the hybrid vehicle is actually the way to go. Forget all of this EV crap. Okay, forget electric vehicles on its own. To me, one of the best vehicles in terms of being able to do things like save gas, save money, and those kinds of things is a hybrid vehicle. But it doesn't mean that the hybrid vehicle is the end-all, be-all, because it's not. There are certain cases where you cannot do a hybrid vehicle. But regardless of all of that, the hybrid vehicle, in my view, might be the perfect merriment of green energy and our current petroleum-based economics in terms of being able to potentially reduce our dependence on petroleum, and thereby possibly at least working towards some of the goals that the green energy folks keep talking about. Not saying that I'm fully invested in the green energy kinds of things. I'm not. But that being said, it does feel really good when you go to the pump and you put in 9 gallons of gas and get about 450 miles out of an older hybrid vehicle. Saving you some money. For sure. All right. Supply Chain 247 reports that Toyota has reached a significant milestone with the official launch of production at its first battery plant outside of Japan. That's the sprawling 1,850 acre site in Liberty, North Carolina. And that's expected to generate up to 5,100 new jobs for Americans, solidifying Toyota's commitment to its team members, customers, dealers, communities, and suppliers within the United States. Now, if you don't think that this was going to happen with Trump's tariff ideas or whatever, and the whole idea of investing in America like he did during his first term, yeah, I'm just telling you, this is not the case. The North Carolina plant marks a major moment in Toyota history, as emphasized by Ted Ogawa, the CEO of Toyota Motor North America. Said today's launch of Toyota's first U.S. battery plant, an additional U.S. investment in $10 billion, marks a pivotal moment in our company's history. Toyota is a pioneer in electrified vehicles, and the company's significant manufacturing investment in the U.S. and North Carolina further solidifies our commitment. So, yes, it is a show of confidence for sure. Let's see what else here. Yeah, I have a couple of Toyotas in my barn, and I got to tell you, I like both of them. They're great cars. Toyota, in my mind, builds good products. Okay. Let's see. I'm debating on whether or not. Okay. I'm going to tell you, folks, I talked about this a couple of nights ago. Really quickly, those of us on the West Coast, we're going to get a clearer picture of what the folks in New York City are going through. Because the Seattle Socialist has won the mayor race. But here's the deal. The Seattle Socialist, and this is part of the reason why I'm telling you, mail-in ballots suck. They are full of fraud. They are full of the capability of getting hijacked and everything else. They suck. We need to go to voter ID, and I'll explain why. In this article in LifeSet, you can just look at the title. It says Seattle Socialist wins mayor race after late ballot dumps and 8 days of counting. Folks, even before Washington went to all-mail balloting, I'm just going to tell you, to me, the point in history, the point in time, and I seriously believe this, even though I don't really have any kind of definitive proof and evidence of this, I seriously believe that Washington was the proving grounds for many of the tactics that are being utilized by the Democrat Party across the United States today in order to try and stay in power. See, what happened in the Christine Gregoire, Dino Rossi debacle is exactly what happened here. Exactly what happened in 2020. Exactly what you see becoming more and more prevalent across the United States. And that is these late ballot dumps. These ballot dumps that make no statistical sense. Where you sit there and see that in general, across the board, the ballot dumps that come in, they come in at like a 60-40 split. 60 for one candidate, 40 for another. 55-45. And they trend to be the same way. And then all of a sudden, late at night, when everything is shut down, there's a ballot dump that comes in that's like 100% for one candidate versus the other. And I'm sorry, but statistically, and the probability, when you start looking at that, those kinds of things, you're looking at that and go, wait a minute, that just seems a bit improbable. That an entire dump is going to be close to 100% of a statistical analysis. There's no way. And I'm telling you, it's so much easier to do when you're doing mail-in balloting and counting after days and days later. I mean, look at all of our presidential elections. And I'm telling you, it even goes down farther than that. It's not just presidential elections. It's also local elections too, like this one is. When you're sitting there taking extra days to count, basically what's happening is these numbers are being added up, and one side is looking at it and saying, okay, we need about 1,000 more ballots in order to win here. See, this is part of the reason why we need to get rid of the mail-in balloting. We need to get rid of the idea that multiple days are needed in order to count it. We need to get back to the point or figure out, because some states can actually do this. I mean, look at Florida. Florida doesn't have mail-in balloting. Florida can get their counts done the night of. We need to pattern stuff after Florida. We need to make sure that our country's elections are secure. And the only way to do that is in-person voting with voter ID that is validated against a citizen, meaning a citizen is the only way that they can get that voter ID, which is why I argue for the U.S. passport. All right, folks. Let's go ahead and get to tonight's question of the week. Oh, my sound effect, I had lowered it accidentally. My apologies. Anyway, let's move on. So tonight's question of the week comes from My News over on Rumble. So My News asks, good evening, Rick. My question has to do with socialism and taxes. Are taxes used to fund the police and fire department socialism? She apparently was told that America was a successful socialist country. To answer your question, no, we're not a socialist country. That's the short answer. Let's go ahead and get into the long answer. So I took a look. Obviously, we have to understand and define what the word socialism is, because in order to be socialist, we have to understand what socialism is. And socialism, for the most part, is broken down into basically describing any kind of political or economic theory that says that the community, rather than the individual, should own and manage property and natural resources. Now, here's the problem. When you want to talk about things like, oh, America is a successful socialist country. No, we're not. We're not even close. In fact, our constitutional republic form of government clearly emphasizes the rights of the individual over the rights of the masses. Now, if we were more of a, say, what is considered a pure democracy, that would be something that I would say, yeah, you could make an argument for it. But the reality of it is that our Constitution and the way our constitutional republic operates is that the rights of the individual to own personal property oversteps the idea of shared resources. Now, here's where we differentiate in terms of the way that we do it. Our taxes originally, and I'm going to point this out, the whole idea of things like national parks, okay, that isn't in the Constitution. There was absolutely nothing in the Constitution that basically defined anything with regards to federal national parks. Now, again, the states could take it on, but not the federal government. The federal government doesn't have a constitutionally mandated responsibility necessarily to do those things. However, somebody like Teddy Roosevelt decided that, hey, if we just allow the masses to just create all of this stuff and to buy up all the land, then yeah, we're going to lose some of our natural resources. And so the idea came into place that, hey, it is in the general public's interest for the federal government to go and purchase these wide swaths of land to prevent overgrowth, to prevent a situation where we become like the Star Wars planet of Coruscant, where everything is a building and there is nothing left on the surface other than buildings. Now, all of that being said, when our founders put together the idea of the Constitution and put together the idea of understanding that there are going to be some functions of government that must be done under the guise of essentially for the betterment of society, okay, that's where the idea came from in terms of things like being able to raise money for a army to prevent an invasion of our country, or the idea of being able to create post roads, which is one of the items under Article 1, Section 8. And so just by its very nature of basically saying, hey, we recognize that there is a need for common items, resources in particular, that are common across everybody, that should be put in place for everybody to utilize, does not consider that is not able to be considered socialism. Because again, socialism and being a socialist country, it says that everybody, the entire community, owns and manages properties and natural resources. And in fact, when the original Jamestown or the original Plymouth Rock, you know, the whole story of the first Thanksgiving, you should really listen to Rush Limbaugh's story of the first Thanksgiving, because the idea when they first came over, when the Pilgrims first came over, the idea was that, hey, this is going to be more of a commune. Everybody is going to share not only in the work, but also in the wealth. And that didn't work. So what ended up happening was more of the capitalist style of system that we have today. Whereas, hey, if you are making something like, you know, you're a baker or whatever, you're making something that is to the benefit of everybody, but yet you can create the profits. Again, you are the individual who owns it. And so even though we do have some shared resources that are for the benefit and the greater good of the entire country, this doesn't mean that we are socialist in any way. Services such as police and fire departments are for the betterment of the community. But I don't necessarily own the fire department. I mean, I can't go walking into my local fire department and like pick up a hose and say, hey, I need this, and I pick it up and I take it away. No, that's called theft. And I'll get prosecuted. I'll get arrested and prosecuted for it. Same thing goes for the police. So these are not particularly items that are owned by the community for full community use. They are services, and they are products and services that are there, funded by taxes, collected from the community for general public usage when they are needed and required. But they are not owned by anybody. They are not owned by the individuals. They are communally used, but they're not owned by the individual. Same thing goes with, for an example, I live on a community well spring. So I don't live on city water. I have community property. I have community wells. I get water from a community well. I hold one share of that. And because I hold one share, I have to pay for whatever the value of that one share is. But that doesn't mean that I own the water. I don't. I pay for that water to be used. Think of taxes the exact same way for your police and fire department. I don't own the police. I don't own the fire department, but they are services that are provided for me in exchange for the information or for the taxes that are being collected. So we are not anywhere near socialism. Do we have elements of socialism or elements of socialist ideas? Sure. The idea of having community resources definitely is a socialist kind of idea. But the thing you have to remember is that it is not socialism, and we are nowhere near socialist. I hope that answers your question. If you have a question for a question of the week, make sure you send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And make sure you tag it as question of the week, because then I will get you into the question of the week. We do that on Saturday nights. And hopefully that answers your question completely. All righty, folks. First of all, I got a shout out to Marco Emilio Valli, I'm going to mincemeat your last name, sir. I'm sorry. Marco Emilio Valli, who just subscribed to the channel over on YouTube. Welcome. I do appreciate it. All right, folks, we will see you on Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Make sure you head over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, if you are on all of my platforms, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, a thumb sideways. And I appreciate that across all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. Like I just said, we'll see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.